Hi, Mr. Kenneth.
Hello,
Achipamwe.
amweni.
Welcome back,
Yani
Chairman.
wasu uri kutaura. Iwasu here ari kutaura. Uri wasu chaiye here kana kuti.
Nditori mukarango wokumasvingo ini Chairman.
Manje inini ndiri wasu but ndakakurira kumasvingo. Saka mwana wamwe anofanwa ndiri muVitori futi.
Wasu panondisekai.
Yeah, Wasu from which side, Mr. Kenneth?
Nyanga, Nyatate.
Which part Kunyatate? Susu
Nyatate.
tiri kuNyamaropa.
Saka ndofanira kuti ndikatokona Mr. Mukeredzi ndichitoombera kana ndiri mukwasha weikoko.
Kupi kwacho?
Hapo Ondeva.
Ondeva Kwatoro.
Okay, okay. Seka, what's your surname? Charangwa. Ndofunga ndikatsvaga ndogona kuwana kaukama uku Nyamaropa.
Amusha
Kunyamaropa ndekwana mautsa ka.
Mutupo wenyorichi.
Kunyamaropa ndekwana mautsa. Kunyamaropa ndekwana mautsa. Humba Makombe.
And you are my brother now. You have to treat me well.
Vatete.
Zvokwadi Makombe, Humba Makombe. Chichera nemuromo mapadza chipa varanga.
Mapadza chipa varanga taurai zvenyu. Aiwa tazvinzwa hanzvadzi. Asi manje mazotaura pane vanhu kamanje saka iye zvino izvi tikazoona ndakudzora tsvimbo manje zvinoti mawaona kavanhu aya atanga maitirawo.
Hanzi vatanga.
Hanzi atanga maitirawo. Okay. There is Mr. Gumbo.
All right. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Gumbo.
Good morning, Mr. Gumbo.
Morning, Tafi. How are you?
Morning, Mr. Gumbo.
I'm fine. Apologies.
Good.
Apologies.
Apologies accepted.
Yeah, we had a very roller coaster. We had a roller coaster of a meeting prior to this, so that invariably took long. Took longer than anticipated. I think there were
the energy
big issues to be discussed. We keep going. We keep going. We keep going. We're made of thinner stuff.
Great.
Right. Okay. Can I have the agenda? All right. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, and thank you for coming in. I know a lot of the people on this meeting are running on very low reserves, but we've got to keep pushing on. This is our. Sorry. Oh, okay. Yeah, so thank you everyone for making the time, and apologies once again to Mr. Gumbo who was kept waiting. But generally, I think apologies for the late start of the meeting. Hopefully this one can go quite smooth, and we can dispense of all the necessary discussions, I think, within the time allocated. Can the Secretariat confirm if we have a quorum?
I can confirm that we have a quorum, Chairman.
Okay. And just by way of register, maybe if you can just confirm who is sitting with you on the Mount Pleasant side?
This side is Dumisani Nyoni and Sekai Charangwa. and myself.
Okay.
And then Tapiwa is also in attendance, taking the minutes.
Okay. I also note the presence of Mr. Gumbo. Does that then mean that they are apologies?
Yes, there's an apology from Mr.
Hmm.
Consequently, who's there, John? He will join as we. I see that. Yeah, he's going to. I see that.
All right. Okay. So can we? So that's not necessarily an apology. It's just he's still going to come,
It's just
right?
a delay. Yes.
All right. The bosses are never late. They're always delayed. Now that we've dispensed of that, the pack has been circulated. Can we just confirm that the agenda as it is the one that we are happy to follow?
Can you confirm from this side?
Okay.
Happy
Mr.
with the
Gumbo,
agenda,
anything you
Chairman?
might want to add?
No, I'm happy with the agenda.
All right. Okay, thank you very much. Then we move on to item 3. The previous minutes. I will take the minutes and the majority of the pack as having been read. I have gone through them. I do not see any glaring errors that would need to be attended to, but it's always good to have extra eyes. Are there any changes or additions or corrections that need to be made on the minutes?
Nothing from this end, Chairman.
Mr. Gumbo, anything that
But let's just go page by page from, I think for the first 2 pages, there's some issues there.
okay. All right, let's start with that page.
Right, I had nothing on that page.
Okay, just scroll down.
Right, I think there was some error, maybe just a small typo error on 5.1. On the so I think it was just maybe to say where the bullet points, the connection between the bullet points and the point above.
Oh, okay.
Bullet points go down. Yeah.
Yeah. So where is the link between the bullet points and what you then just went on to start listing those bullet points?
Okay, let's see what's up there. Okay. What you're doing for this measurement of the videos. On the same page for the decision making, ensure that the curriculum system. Okay. Let's open it up. Yeah, okay. I think we note that Ms. Koba, I think the line that is missing there is the emphasis to say that the committee then said we must ensure that those 3 items are covered. I think we need to state that the committee then advise management to ensure that the ACASCA system implementation addresses and so forth.
Yeah. Okay, and then on 6.1, I think there is an end missing somewhere. I can't remember where exactly it was. So your currency, ZWG, is it ZWG or ZIG?
It will be ZWG. Which part? Sorry.
Your Zimbabwean dollar, what is how do you reference our currency?
It will be ZIG. ZWG.
So it's ZWG official.
Oh, so that's official.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, and then after that, you were then not putting the currency. So your
Noted for correction, Chairman.
was USD 12.5 million, made up of, obviously there's a typo of the and ZWG,
Okay, yes.
right?
That's
And
it.
then thereafter, you can then put in the currency on the numbers that are following through, because so that we can understand. Reinsurance was 7.8 M. Is that ZWG or USD?
Deadline, yeah.
So starting there was 11.5 M. Is that ZWG or USD? Just to clarify, so that you can be clear on which currency it is.
Okay, noted for correction.
Reinsurance has 7.8 and also, yeah.
Okay, I think that's all from my. Those are the corrections from my side.
Any other changes?
None.
With that said, and pending those corrections, are we happy to adopt these minutes as being a true record of the conversations we had?
I propose for the adoption, Chairman.
All right, thank you, Mr. Gumbo, for proposing. Now somebody to second that.
I'll second that, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Nyoni. Right. Let's move on. All right, can we get the executive to take us through the matters arising?
Sure, Chairman. Starting on item number 1, the issue was on the management fees. Management was requested to recompute and classify management fees as dividend. I think the needs need to be corrected. There should be an N between the E and the D. This was done, and the financials that are being audited have actually catered for that. Going to item number 2, the 2025 budget. Management reported that the 2025 budget was circulated for approval. Management was requested to make highlighted amendments and recirculate the budget to members for alignment before the board meeting. This was done, and budget was approved. Going to item number 3, the microfinance members' views were that the microfinance business was a good opportunity for business to grow. Management was requested to put in place a proper business plan for use as a measure of executing and present to the committee. This was done and circulated to the members. I think more detail will be spoken about in the pad. Moving down, I think that basically summarizes the matters arising.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Gumbo?
Yeah, I think there was an issue that we discussed with regards to functional currency. What exactly is our functional currency? From what I see from your minutes, so from your presentations, about 76% of our revenue is now in US dollars. So obviously that calls for a change in functional currency, which needs to be supported by a board resolution and a presentation from management that our functional currency has changed. It's something that just nagged me at the back of my mind to say, what are we presenting our numbers in? And have we done all the necessary steps for the adoption of the actual functional currency that we should be reporting our numbers in? Maybe management can shed light on that.
Yes, our functional currency is USD. I think that was raised in the previous audit meeting, and it was agreed that we needed to report in USD, despite the need for presentation in the local currency by IPAC. Actually, the PAAB issued another circular recently in February, a few weeks ago, to say even if your functional currency is USD, you are now mandated to have a reporting currency of the local currency. So in essence, what it means is we will first of all do our financials in USD, which is our functional currency. But then the auditors will be involved in converting the audited financials and overseeing the conversion to the reporting currency that is now mandated for every entity in the country.
Yeah. So my issue is about procedures to see how have we effected those changes. Last year we were reporting in local currency.
So basically, what's required? Yes, through you, Chair. What's required is to do a functional currency analysis and then do a write-up, which we did and presented to the auditors. I heard from your initial statement that it needed board approval. That particular part, I sincerely apologize because I was not aware of it. But all the procedures that were required to say all the fundamental signs that should be there when changing a functional currency are there, and the write-up was done and presented to the auditors, and we were aligned in the need for changing the functional currency.
Through the chairman.
Yeah, Mr. Nyoni.
Chairman, I think I just picked from Mr. Gumbo the house cleaning issues. I think the oversight came about because I think for us to be able to report in the USD currency, I think this was obviously the need from the board, where the board has raised the issues. I think it was the committee in particular which raised the issue of having a proper view of the performance of the business. So I think in that space, we just simply followed the advice, and then we forgot to do the house cleaning where we need to bring this properly to the board for adoption as a resolution. I think Chairman will be proceeding with that as a house cleaning issue.
Just to add on, thank you, Mr. Nyoni. Just to add on as well, given all these changes that happened, particularly on the finance and accounting side of things, we also need to make sure that our SOPs and our procedures, our internal procedures, are tracking whatever those changes are. And one would then expect that if we were to look at our SOPs, there will be various versions of the same SOP that take note of whatever changes are happening at the macro environment to then be brought down into the micro environment, so that we will never have an issue where our policies or our SOPs and our procedures are at variance to what we are asking for. Just a note for management to check and make sure that your policies, remember your policies are also living documents and they have to evolve as the environment is evolving. So when the SPB passes a statutory instrument that reflects a change, our SOPs should also reflect that change. And if IPEC passes a change, then let's make sure that we drill it down to the lowest level that we need to put it in, so that it's always consistent. We should never be at variance to what has been issued. And that should reside with somebody to make sure that those, whether it's a statutory instrument, whether it's a board resolution, whether it's IPEC or whatever it is, whatever those changes are, they need to be reflected. Each version should reflect whatever change there is. So you can actually go back into the history to say, we were doing this at this time, and then we changed to do that.
That is understood, Chairman.
All right. I was actually just going to say, but I think you've clarified it in terms of what was the thinking in terms of this new SPB SI. Because I saw it, I think it's about a week or 2 weeks ago. What is the thinking there? Because are we saying that at a macro level, one, there is significant usage of the local currency? Number two, that the fluctuation of the local currency has stabilized, and that now we can actually report in the local currency. What was the underlying issue there, and what are we trying to achieve?
Through you, Chair, I think in all honesty, what's been happening is the ZiG has been scarce in the market for a couple of months now. It's literally not available. I think it's a bit of a control of its supply so that it firms up, its value does not diminish. So I think this was a request by the monetary authorities to try and sort of like maintain the ZiG at the current value that it's at. So it's unfortunate now that the PAAB sometimes has to try and find common ground with the laws of the country and what the financial standards say. So in essence, what PAAB then said was, no, the functional currency does not need to change because it is determined by certain indicators. But what we cannot run away from is the actual reporting in the ZiG currency. So I think it's more from a political perspective than it is from an economic one, just to give an impression that the ZiG is working and it's highly on demand. Yeah.
For a country that prides itself in the level of literacy and education of its citizens, it makes some of the decisions we make. Yeah, you're left wondering because, again, what are we trying to do? You know, all we want, the reason why we report is for us to be able to make decisions. Now, if we are making decisions on something that is not real, the consequences will be dire down the road. But anyway, I'm sure there is things that they are seeing which will only become apparent to us down the line.
Yeah.
And I think it's more to align. It's more to align with what, like, for example, our budget, in spite of everything having dollarized, or maybe everything being 80% dollarized, they still insist on presenting our budget in our local currency. And then IPEC is part of the Ministry of Finance. It falls under the Ministry of Finance, which manages the budget. Therefore, they cannot then go at variance with what they're trying to promote.
Yeah.
My concern, and I know this is nothing, obviously within our domain, but my concern is in terms of the distortions, the currency distortions that exist in our micro and macro environment, are we then not painting a picture which does not rely on business or economic fundamentals? I mean, one has to look at some of the things that are happening and the companies that are going under or that are now, calling for business or whatever. We call it corporate rescue that side. Here it's called business rescue. And it's just the distortions, the currency distortions that exist and the decisions thereof that people make because of those distortions. I mean, for example, what inflation figures are you then supposed to use when you do the conversion? And your growth figures and so on. But anyway, I think this is digressing a little bit. It's just something that when you try and assess business performance, I find it very, very difficult to actually, establish what exactly is going on and whether a business is performing well or it's not. But anyway.
I'm sure we can spend more time on that on on the 24th and 25th
Yeah,
as we're having coffee.
as we're having
Because, yeah,
coffee, yeah. So
Otherwise,
that,
we'll spend the
it-
whole
it-
day here. Because in the eyes of the policymakers, there's no currency distortions. It is only in the eyes of manipulators and saboteurs who want to sabotage the local currency.
the local currency, and those who are, yeah, okay. Anyway, let's go on. I think we can segue straight into the report, unless there's any other issues to mention on the matters arising. Confirm we're going to talk about the microfinance within the body of the pack.
Yes,
Okay. All right. You can.
briefly mentioned it, but
Okay.
we'll explain it in detail in there.
All right. Okay, that's fine.
Okay. So allow me to touch on the highlights. So our GWP was 16 million in, and it's made up of 12 million in pure US dollars and in 56 million 660,575 in the local currency, which basically translates to about 3 million USD. Of course, the major contributor was farming with 10.6 million. In terms of our ratios, which of course will basically explain almost everything when it comes to performance. Our reinsurance ratio was sitting at 61% against a budget of 49% and a prior year of 60%. Our claims ratio combined was sitting at 50% against a budget of 13 and a prior year of 9. Our commissions ratio sitting at 19% against a prior year of 23% and above a budget of 5%. Then when it comes to our operating expense ratio to the gross revenue, they're sitting at 10% against a budget of 16 and a prior year of 12, but against the net return premium, they're sitting at 34% against a budget of 31% and then 57% prior year. Combined ratio is at 102%, which is way above both the budget and the prior year. And this is obviously because of the increase in the claims ratio as well as the expense ratio. Our staff expenses to total expenses are sitting at 44%, and then our staff expenses to total income are sitting at 18%. Looking at the industry ratios for Q3, the claims ratio for sanctuary insurance, that is Q3, was 68% against an industry average of 82%. So from this 68, it moderated to 50% because of our RRTA, which has very little claims that we wrote in the last quarter of 2024. Combined ratio on Q3, according to IPEC, was at 91% against an industry average of 90%. So allow me to.
Before you move on, let's just dwell on the ratios just a little bit. And I understand the claims ratio because we had a 1 7-year cycle kind of event that happened, which negatively impacted or adversely impacted on the agro claims, right? It shot them up above what had been budgeted for, right? But I think if you can assist the committee to understand the variance between your current year and your budget in particular, because your reinsurance ratio, for example, you were at 61%. And that's quite different from your 49%, which you had budgeted for. It's close to the prior year, I get that, but it's significantly different from your budget, right? I also note your commissions ratio, right? As a percentage, not the quantum, but as a percentage, is significantly different from what you are budgeting. And I think that scenario goes throughout, you know, your line items. And what I would want as a committee for us to understand is we've got a budget, which is usually our guiding principle in terms of how we are progressing and also the decisions that we need to make. And also when there are now variances, significant variances, you know, what is the thought process? How do we go about and how do we make those decisions such that at the end we now have variances between what we are budgeting and what we are, what the actuals are? If you can maybe look at those line items again. Sorry?
Yeah, while we are at it, Chairman, I'm also a bit confused. Maybe not confused, but you know, in terms of trying to grasp the ratios, me being a good old accountant, you would want to first of all see the actual numbers. So the way the report is structured is in such a manner that we are talking of graphs, the ratios, without really looking at the quantum of the numbers to give us perspective of what we are talking about. So you might be talking of about maybe an operating profit percentage ratio of 34% or whatever number it is, but that number is actually $2. I don't know if you get what I'm saying.
Yes, understood.
So we are coming from an audited numbers. My expectation is what we're going to be beamed right now is our audited good old financials. We start our statement of comprehensive income against last year, against prior year, showing the numbers, our good old balance sheet and our cash flow. Then we can look at the numbers and the quantum and say, what is our profit levels for the year? Then we look at the ratios later on, as opposed to do the reverse of looking at the ratios, then we run out of time or whatever it is, gloss over the actual numbers. So
Okay.
that's my challenge with the way the report has been presented. And if this is the future, if this is how the reports are going to be presented in the future, I may have a challenge with that and maybe suggest a different way of presenting our numbers such that we look at the numbers, their variance, then we go into the ratios to try and understand.
Okay, through you, Chairman, I totally understand, Mr. Gumbo. I think my error was the assumption that the members had gone through the pack, and I was just then trying to add flesh to some of the things they've gone through, but I totally get your point. Allow me to share the statement of profit or loss.
So this is the audited financials.
Yes. This is what is undergoing audit at the moment.
So your insurance is revenue is 14 million.
Yes. So the how it's disclosed when we are using IFRS 17 is that the insurance revenue is net of the transfer to UPR. So that's why this looks a bit more complicated. That's why we have to put everything in context at the beginning to say our GWP was 16 million. Then transfer to UPR is supposed to be this much. So this then summarizes it in terms of the, what do you call it, the IFRS 17 requirements.
Which are the numbers that we're going to present to IPAC or the
Yes,
audited numbers?
these are the numbers we're presenting to IPAC as is.
Which are the numbers that is the board and committee we should then approve?
These are the numbers that the board and committee will approve.
So these are the numbers that should be before us.
Yes, so these are the numbers that I'm sharing right now, Chair.
And the numbers that you should, your report should be actually be based on to say, right, our insurance revenue is 14 versus 9.9 last year, and show us the variance for that, and then you can then give the explanations for that.
I totally hear where you're coming from, Chairman.
Because these are what has been audited. We have paid money to the auditors to look at these numbers. And when we go through these numbers, we have got the audit assurance that they have been reviewed and they have been what? Authenticated.
Correct.
That is correct.
So yeah, so that's why that's where I was having a challenge to say, when I look at your numbers and when I look at some of the errors that are in those numbers, do I say these are the audited numbers, or these are management generated numbers that they're giving them for a management meeting? Because in my view, we should be sitting here looking at the audited numbers that we are then going to seek board approval for adoption as the numbers that are going to be sent to IPAC.
Through you, Chair, I hear you, Mr. Gumbo, but remember, we are still undergoing the audit. We've not finalized it. For approval, I think in the last meeting, I think you had an emergency in that one where we attended with the chairman. I think the agreement there was that by the 31st of March, that's when the signed pack will be available. So this I have shared with you so that at least you are as close to reality as possible as to how 2024 turned out.
Yeah, I think if I can just come in, I think our process is still going through sort of changes, if I can put it that way, where the alignment of what we're supposed to be discussing at, so you're right, Mr. Gumbo, at this first board meeting, by now we should have either signed financials or at least financials that we know are not really going to change, and we can be looking at them and interrogating them. But I think also where we missed the boat, in my view, is that we as a committee or as a board were not able to look at the near final numbers for the performance for last year before they went to even before we commenced the audit, you know. And I'll tell you where the challenge is for management, for us, is that where Mr. Gumbo's discomfort and where my discomfort also sits is that our numbers that we present have been wildly oscillating for whatever reasons. You know, so we are now in a situation where we're saying, okay, all right, now are these numbers going to change again, or they are not? So that's where we're at as a committee, which is, if you can understand that level of trying to say, okay, are we going to sit here and then next week when the auditors have come back and our numbers have swung in the opposite direction? So there are a couple of things that need to happen. I think number one, our processes need to be aligned to what we want to happen, so that when we are presenting numbers to the board next week, we know that these numbers the auditors have looked at. If that is not the case, then we don't want to be presenting numbers to the board. That's the first issue. The second issue is that we need to align our meetings to some of these key critical occurrences within the financial calendar. At what point do we meet as a committee just to review our performance before we call the auditors? Because there may be things there that, from an oversight perspective, we might be able to ask questions and get to correct or get to highlight before the auditors come. How are we going to do that? Is it possible for us to actually then have those numbers coming in from, say, when we have our Q4 in the year that, or close to the end of the year, with 1 month remaining? I think we tried that process last year, but again, it was it was still fluctuating. So there are a couple of things that we need to then correct. And then we also then need to fundamentally understand how we want to present the figures so that we are cognizant of the audience and how they process numbers and what is good practice. I'm not sure if management has made sense of what I'm trying to, or what we're trying to get at.
Yes. Totally understood, Mr. Mkeredzi, because as you are rightfully saying, this committee should have been held after we'd gone through the whole audit process, after the numbers had been, actually we should be approving the audited numbers. So I totally hear you that alignment is needed. So that at least there won't be need to have another meeting after the finalization of the numbers. As it stands right now, these are the numbers that are there. There's no indication that they're going to be adjusted because the necessary adjustments have already been made, which were mainly actuarial numbers that we needed to adjust as per actual valuation report from the actuaries.
So you now need to take us through these numbers such that we then see what's our operating profit, what's our profit after tax, and then if these numbers are then subject to change, you are then updating us that on finalization, the following numbers have changed as a result of the following audit adjustments, which happened in the last 2 or 3 days. But in the meantime, we would have discussed and interrogated these numbers to our satisfaction, such that if we then ask what is our operating profit before tax right now, we know that go down. We can confidently say it's 304 and then go down after tax. What is your profit after tax?
No, we ended here. The tax form is still under review, so we're working on that one.
Yeah. So you have done your computations for tax, right? And submitted to the audit, right? So
yes,
that you then
there are still base and forth, Mr. Gumbo. I have what I have. So yesterday, as of today, actually in the morning, there were certain adjustments that we are currently making. So
I hear you. I hear you. I hear you. I've been on many boards. So what you're then going to say is 304 after tax, my tax figure is not final. My profit after tax right now is $100,000. Still subject to changes in what? In tax.
Okay, that's understood.
Because ideally, when you are coming to the board here, what is the purpose of this finance committee and the audit committee? It is to recommend to shareholders to say, is there going to be a dividend? That's what the shareholders are expecting, right? After us having reviewed these numbers. But you can say, no, our profit after tax, that's a management report. Profit before tax. Shareholders are interested in what? In profit after tax. So your report should go all the way to profit after tax. And where there are estimations, you are then going to tell the board that this number is subject to change on the tax computations because so far we've not finalized or we've not yet an audited tax what figure. And we all understand because of what you've then told us last week that the audit still has been delayed because of actual evaluations. Therefore, we accept the delays that are arising out of that.
No, that is understood, Chairman.
I think just to add on to where Mr. Gumbo is coming from, I think if you recall, and it did come up as an audit issue where we ended up, and yes, the issue that was picked up was we paid out something as a management fee where it should have been a dividend. But even if we had classified it as a dividend, I'm sure the auditors would have still asked us some questions in terms of how could you, right? If you recall what happened last year is that I think we made those decisions on the basis of numbers that had not been audited. Do you remember?
I
think.
So, sorry, Chairman,
Yeah.
the dividend decision.
Yes. Yes, there was a classification issue, but I also think that it was borderline you know, how could you? Almost.
Yeah,
Right.
I think Chairman, through you, the issues that I think Mr. Kumbo raised, I think they are quite critical for the comment for the committee, and I think that line which has to follow, though, I think the two lines mainly, I think would be the profit after tax, and most probably for the committee, they would want to see if there is a dividend declaration, what sort of figures are we looking for? But we're looking at. I think we can actually add that for the committee before we go to the main board.
Yeah. What we are just saying is that I think the other issue, if you listen to sort of the theme of Mr. Kumbo's comments as well, is that you don't want I don't want to use this expression, but for want of a better expression, we want to manage expectations.
Yes.
Right? People's eyes and ears, they peak when they see numbers, and not everybody has the keen eye to then obviously appreciate and understand everything to 0.0. If you're asking me, I just look at profit. We made 300,000. Thank you very much, guys. Let's sit and talk. Right? And the other considerations, could audit say adjustments and so on and so forth. I may not be that keenly invested in those processes for me to understand. And then when we then come back and say, no, we can't, I think credibility issues, trust issues, and so on and so forth, we want to try and manage. We want to be as close to the reality as we possibly can. Audits will always come with some adjustments. We appreciate that there will be changes and so on and so forth. But I think those issues, we can put them there so that those expectations are managed. And just to give you a point, I don't know why, but I was thinking that loss and profit, I don't know why I saw the figure. I was thinking more 98,000.
Oh yes, the 98,000 was on the management account prior to extra changes that were actually
Exactly, but I hope you guys get the sort of frustration, right? That okay, so in my head now I'm processing 100,000, yeah, right, and then it's going to change and it fluctuates. So I think let's try, as Mr. Gumbo says, you know, we can have these numbers, and then when the changes come, we've got a reference point to say that number of mine has changed because of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right? That way it's easier for us. Some of us don't have that much gray matter left to be able to process all these numbers and say, okay, that number was because it was in the management report, but that was done A, B, C, D, and so on and so forth. The level that we're operating at is let's all have one version of the truth. And when that version changes, we all know where those changes are coming from. Okay. Mr. Gumbo, anything you would want to add to this conversation?
I think you have heard it, Tawe, to say right now the number that we should actually be having conversations around is 304.
Yes.
And then the tax adjustments. The 98 that we have spent the past 3 days analyzing and making decisions on. Again, if I'm just to be blunt, you're wasting our time.
Okay, through you, Chair, I think with all due respect to Mr. Gumbo, right now, I'm supposed to present with the not so final tax computation. It changes, it is the same conversation again to say the numbers are changing, which is the very same thing that happened here. Things changed. I got an adjustment on the UPR, I adjusted, and I actually communicated to say, guys, there have been several changes after the actual report came. So it is these things now that I'm now required to first make assumptions on certain things when things are not final. And then people say these things, and then these things change again. And then it says, and then the conversation changes.
We hear you, Mr. Shadaya, but again, you know, you're asking us to look at it from your view. We're also saying, look at it from our view, right? If you look at the times that we have met, okay, since last year, and I keep referring to this because I think it is fundamental that we are able to own the numbers that you guys put on the table for us and own the processes as well and understand the processes that you go through, right? And I think we've discussed this, and this is a serious pain point for the committee in that we have gone from 800, negative 1.2, positive 100, positive 300, right? And these things are happening. We're realizing these things post the event. Okay. So we're somewhat detached from what is happening. Whenever something happens, we would be part of the figures and owning the figures to actually say, Chairman, remember that figure that I gave you, right? And auditors have come back, or the actuarial valuation has come back and said, we over-provided. My provisions were way over the top. So they've asked us to make these changes. It's so after the event. So it's kind of like having to then, so when a figure like this is thrown, right? And now we're trying to reconcile and now we're here and so on and so forth. We deal in numbers, we deal in issues. And yes, those assumptions, if we own the assumptions and we're together, and when those assumptions are changing, it's text message. This is what, as rather than expecting us to wait and then lap up whatever information is presented for us. I mean, how do we, as Mr. Gumbo was saying, we've been analyzing the business on that set of results.
Right? That is very true, Chairman. If you remember,
so we need to find common ground in terms of how we do this and how we move forward. Because what we are saying as a committee is that it makes our lives extremely difficult for us to provide whatever guidance, whatever oversight, whatever fiduciary responsibility that is mandated upon us by mere fact that we are directors. Because we don't know whether the guidance that we are giving you is based on matters of fact, right? And there are certain issues that are happening in the environment that make that probably impossible. However, can we not improve our communication processes? Because the environment is fluid, we all understand that. But how do we improve our processes and our communication processes so that at the end of the day, there are no surprises? I know you're also facing the same surprises.
Through the chair.
But how do we align each other so that those surprises don't surprise us even more? And, like now, okay, fine. We said in the previous meeting about how do we make decisions on costs and stuff like that. Yeah. Somebody wanted to come in?
Yes, Chairman, I think the concerns are quite clear, and I think we can't run away from those. I know that we have gone through quite a lot of changes that obviously confused the members, particularly when you're talking about the numbers that changed from 800 to 1.2 and so forth and so forth. I think for me, I would really say maybe give an apology. We were supposed to work with you at every turn when these things were changing, because these were quite fundamental. And today we're talking about the 304, which is obviously a different speaker from the 98. But I think what was important was that at every turn we needed to be having conversations with you to say, now they were taking this turn and so forth, because all these things were being at the guidance of the audit and the actuarial valuers. So, but we needed to also to be highlighting at this change. I think those are learning points from my end to make sure that we do not give you these kind of surprises, but we actually work with you and explain what caused those changes and where we are. So I think for me, that's a perfection that we're going to be dealing with, including the issue, like Mr. Kumbo rightfully put it, that when we are coming at this stage, when we're talking about these figures, we are really talking to the shareholder, and there is an expectation that our figures should be clear and either show an expectation or dispel it. So I think that's another addition that I indicated that we're going to include to make sure that it speaks to the committee, for the committee to speak to the board correctly.
Yeah, look, I agree with you, Mr. Nyoni. But as we're saying, I think even when we said the last time, when we almost had heart attacks and our blood pressures were up, that for these changes, guys, that's the reason why you have these committees. It's pointless for us to come here and take your money, which we will demand, right, for being board members, for us just to sit here and not be of any assistance, not be there as a sounding board, not be there as should we or what am I going to do? You guys are paying us to do a job, or the organization is investing for us to do a job,
Yeah,
right? And
shareholders
part
are
of
paying.
that job is
The
for
shareholders
us to
are
work
paying
with
us.
you guys. It doesn't have to be a controversial. We have to own the processes. We have to own this committee that we sit on.
Correct.
Right. So Tawe, as a takeaway point for you, the numbers, the person who takes ownership of these numbers is you. You are the one who gives the auditors your tax computation. And you are the one who is 100% sure or 89% sure of the accuracy of your tax computation. So you should have given us a profit after tax number based on your level of assurance of your tax computation. The auditors just review, they don't take ownership of the numbers. You take 100% ownership of that number. And going forward in our finance committee meeting and audit committee meetings, the number that we're interested in is the profit after tax.
That is understood, Chairman.
With a tax computation that has been computed by you to the best of your knowledge, which is aligned to expectations from the auditors. If there are minor adjustments, they're just making minor adjustments, but you being a qualified accountant, you would have done a correct tax computation.
Okay. I also, for the purposes, I think, of progress, the figure that is provisionally there is 86,453. So if we subtract it from the 304, we remain with 217,684.
So that's the profit after tax. And from
Yes.
a procedural perspective, if there are any changes between what you presented in the pack, you send an email. My numbers have changed so much. This is the latest report that I'm going to be presenting to you in my finance committee meeting. We all understand the where the changes are coming from, and we then present these numbers. We had to somehow force you to bring this number, but you're going to take us through the 2-3 hours that we're going to be sitting down, taking us through numbers that you have known that have changed somehow. That is where the pain and the frustration comes from the committee perspective.
I totally understand, Mr. Gumbo.
Okay, we can proceed.
Okay, so basically, looking at this, our insurance service result from the contracts issued, sitting at 2,143,860. Allocation of reinsurance paid, which is basically the reinsurance aspect of the business return, was 7,526,000. Amounts recoverable from reinsurers were 7,028,354, leaving us with net expenses from reinsurance contracts of 498,599. And then we ended up with an insurance service result of 1645 before adding other income, which is sitting at 226,953. Of that 226, 186 is from the motor insurance, or the other 40-something thousand is on a reduction in our impairment provision. Then our operating expenses were sitting at 1.5 million against an inflation adjusted converted number of 1.663 in prior year. Our other finance costs, which also include the finance charges in our lease computations, sitting at 43,036, giving us a profit before tax of 304,137. So in essence, looking at those figures, the biggest driver obviously was the other income that came from the motor insurance pool. If you remove the other income, the 226 from 304, we remain with about 77,000, which is purely now the operating profit from an underwriting perspective, which is the underwriting profit for 2024. I don't know if there's any questions or issues that need to be clarified before we move.
So you said the other income was money from the pools.
Yes.
Okay.
Then if I may continue to the statement of financial position, Mr. Gumbo, is that okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So
Are you going to share? Have you shared these numbers?
what I've done is, I think let me share them soon after this one.
Yeah,
So
please. Yeah,
yes.
I think if you can do that, because rather than us trying to crunch the numbers here, it's not really going to do justice to the process. So you can take us through the numbers, right, and give context to them, and then we can then do the number crunching, and if we have questions, we can come back. Because trying to process these numbers is at least for me is almost impossible.
I totally understand. I think the aim was to say, obviously the packs were prepared using management accounts numbers. So I think I actually discussed this with Mr. Nyoni in the morning to say, no, I think it's good to give the board members a feel that is as close to reality as possible. So I had to then add this in the morning before this meeting to say, okay, at least we are somewhere reasonable with the auditors. I think the members can also benefit from having a clearer picture of where we will end up for the 2024 numbers.
So how different are these numbers from the one that you have on your pack?
Not much, because the only difference was on the management accounts. We were looking at 98,000 as an underwriting profit. So the only adjustments that happened were on the movements, the technical liabilities movements, the movements in UPR and IBNR, those things that are done by the actuaries. So on all other items, the commission expenses, the management expenses, nothing changed.
And then let's see your cash flow, because the cash flow that you have on your pack.
This
can
one.
Go back. Is it the cash flow that you have on your pack as well?
No, it's a bit different, because remember, these audited ones, we convert using the spot rate, the daily rates, and then when we are doing management accounts, we convert using what do we call this, the average rates, the average monthly rates. But the difference is not different, because there's not much of a big difference. Here our cash is ending at 233,000. If I'm not mistaken, on the pack that was circulated, it's around 227,000. So it is those differences that are translation related.
Yeah. So the way your cash generated from operating activities, that is where I had a very huge problem with your cash flow that you presented on your pack.
Okay.
If you can go to the cash flow that presented on your pack.
Yes, I think. 15.
Should be on page 18. Okay.
Okay. On this one.
Where you put your cash flow from operations before working capital changes there for current year. Does that number make sense to you?
No, I'm not sure what happened here.
507 cash outflow 507.
I think it was an error on the non-cash items, which are the technical reserves. As you can see in prior, they were sitting at 567. So I think when my team was copying this, they left out digits after this one. Allow me to look into it.
So
If
that's
you
why I
go
think if these were audited numbers, then I was saying, are the auditors really passing on these numbers? I was actually going to demand a refund from our external auditors to say, are you passing these numbers here?
Yeah, totally true. So if we look at the audited ones, sorry,
Now you understand where we are coming from.
Okay. Yes, Chairman.
Sorry. You understand where we're coming from.
Yes, I totally do.
Yeah.
Because when you say you're presenting to me audited numbers and you say these are audited numbers, I get worried.
No, these ones are not the audited ones, Chairman.
But the assumption is that the auditors are close to finalizing our audit. And I'm saying, why would Tawe present to us audit numbers that are not as close to final numbers?
Yeah, I think that's why I said, Chairman, that I would be presenting, instead of using the management accounts, I would be presenting the ones that are under audit, which are the ones I was then presenting, Chairman.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fine. Well, like I said, if you're going to send us through those numbers, then we'll find time to go through them.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that we don't derail the meeting.
All
But
right. So let me just.
You've understood our point.
Yes, totally.
You've understood our frustrations.
Yes.
We're not here to fight you guys. We will only fight if you want to fight. We can bring it.
No.
So I think let's let's be on the same page. I think that's all I can say. As Mr. Kumbo said, I hope that this illustrates our position. I think you asked us to look at your position, and we said, I think we kind of understand the fluidity to manage, but we also want you to understand where we are coming from.
Okay.
And they only look at the numbers that are in the pack, eh? They don't say, no, there are another set of numbers that was later on presented, and
I'm finding, just as a side note before you get, I'm finding it interesting to read about all these corporate issues that are happening in Zim at the moment. You know, because nobody is asking the question that they should be asking. Company no thing is called Dora. Dora Jairo.
Chairman.
Huh?
Hi, Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Nyoni.
Sorry to just detour a bit. Mr. Kusi, we forgot to mention that Mr. Kusi has come through, but I think it's time for him to leave for another meeting. So he wants to just let you know that he's your floor, Mr.
Chairman,
Right, okay. Yes,
sorry, Chairman. I'm not dodging your meeting, Chairman.
you are dodging because
I can never dodge your meeting, Chairman.
but we will find you.
You find me,
We
Chairman.
will find you. I know where you live, unfortunately.
You find me on Friday.
I know where you live. All right, Mr. Kusqueño, I think let us deal with your team. I'm sure they're well capable of dealing with the issues that they need to deal with.
Thank you, Chairman.
All right.
Okay, so I think of major importance on the SFP, the balance sheet, looking at whether we're adding value to the shareholders' funds, the net asset value, if it's increasing. We're looking at 4.3 million against an inflation-adjusted converted number of 3.26. Looking at our retained earnings, I think the reserve has gone up to 4,093,000 from 2.7. Of course, this is because also of the exchange gains that are supposed to appear under other comprehensive income. I think I'll just share with that when I share with you the figures, as you said, when I circulate after this meeting. In terms of our liability, reinsurance contract
Your
liability.
exchange gains are on conversion from one currency to the other.
Yes.
Okay, all right, okay.
So on your, if you go to assets, your non-current assets,
Yes.
your investment in subsidiary.
Yes.
Okay. I see now the movement is about 300,000.
Yes. Which is the from the valuation report, revaluation report of the subsidiary. Every year we do a valuation as at 31 December. So the value increased by 300,000.
Okay.
Is a
On your-
valuation report. Yeah.
On your management, it had gone up by 760.
On my what, sorry?
On your management accounts, the ones that are in the pack.
Okay, so what happens with
That's fine, but that's not my question. I'm sure you've got an explanation for that. My issue is about what is our policy on valuation of assets. Do we use historical costs or we're revaluing? Because I don't know, you know the standards better with regards to asset recognition policy. Is it supposed to be historical cost or revaluation?
it's supposed to be revaluation.
So are we revaluing all our assets now?
Yes, we are. Every year
So
we
you're
revalue.
Are you are revaluing your PPE
Yes,
every year?
every year.
Or PPE?
All PPE as per asset register.
You're revaluing it.
We are revaluing it. It goes to a value what the asset register goes to them in December. They come and see what they want to see, and then they revalue. So we actually get a revaluation report on all PPE every year.
And then that should go to your revaluation reserve,
Yes.
which is non-distributable. If you go to equity and liabilities. So where is your revaluation reserves, which is non-distributable?
There it is.
Where
Yeah.
revaluation reserves, what's the movement there?
There's 144,000 from 245. That's like 100,000.
Decrease.
Yes.
Yet
So
your
what's up?
revaluation,
What's
you let your investment subsidiaries increase by 300,000.
I think the best way is to show you how the statement of changes in equity, the movements happened, because remember, we used inflation-adjusted numbers, correct? So by using inflation-adjusted numbers, the opening balance has to be adjusted because it's difficult, it's different from the historic ones. So what then happens is you have a revaluation where you are saying, for example, my PPE is now valued at 113,000, right? But then you find that your opening balance has a balance of 172,000 as per that aspect. So there's that movement that has happened between those two figures, right? Which is mainly caused by the conversion of the inflation adjusted numbers to USD, since this is the maiden year. Your concerns can easily be addressed by the statement of changes in equity, which then shows all these movements as to how this particular reserve moved from there to there.
Okay, so you can quickly flash your statement of changes in equity.
Okay. Allow me to share.
Or your PPE not.
I think what's close to me right now is the statement of changes in equity. If you may allow me to share that. Just a second.
That your PPE note will be more informative with regards to the revaluations and.
I think it's also there in what I'm about to share. It's okay. I think I can show you. Just a second. No, it's all right. No, I'm using here machine.
As Tafi was saying, you've got a mixture of people. Some who just want to see the bottom number and they're happy with it. And some would want to see how those numbers, who can substantiate that number is correct. Eh?
Yeah, sure.
So, Chairman, bear with us when we go through these accounting numbers.
I'm quite happy. I'm quite happy that you have taken the baton. I think Mr. Nyoni and others will tell you that this is not the first time they've had a director who. So I'm very happy. The floor is yours, Mr. Gumbo.
Sorry, Tawe, for putting you on the spotlight, but I just want to get that assurance in terms of
You have learned well.
It is okay, Mr. Gumbo. It is your right to ask such questions.
A man after my own heart, sir.
Okay. So here we are ready to share this. Sorry. Is it visible?
Yeah.
So this is our PPE note. This is our balance that is in our SFP, the 113,217, and this is the prior year number. If we come atop here, these were the opening balances using the inflation numbers that were converted, leaving us with 172. These were the additions, 31. These were the revaluations.
So 172 is your what? Is your historical?
No, it's inflation numbers that have been converted as at the rate of on 31 December.
All right.
Yeah.
So 172 is one that leads to your opening balance fixed assets.
Yes.
For the year, which is now inflation adjusted.
Yes, there are no inflation adjustments on this one because remember we're now reporting using a functional currency of USD. So this is purely.
Yeah. So your US dollar converted numbers, yes.
Yeah.
Right, and then evaluations, if the assets have come down by 81,000, why would they have come down so significantly?
Remember, I'm opening with 172, for example. I've only added 31 and minus 9.6. The differences that arise from the fact that this 172 is already inflated. It was inflation adjusted. therefore already inflated. So the reduction is because of that movement, that conversion that happened from the inflation adjusted numbers to USD for us to come up with opening balances. So the effect of a change in functional currency, it affects the opening balances of PPE and the reserves. So it is those inflated numbers then that need to be adjusted.
So you see why we're then saying you need a board resolution on change in currency, such that then when you go through all the impact of what is the impact of our conversion, of our change in currency, we would all know that we are losing 81,000 in terms of our value for assets by changing our functional currency. So all these things would have been signed off by the relevant committees way before the what?
Yeah,
Before,
totally
if
true,
then-
Mr. Bo.
if you go to your authority limit matrix, does management have authority to make those adjustments of 81,000 to your PPE?
In essence, Chairman, the PPE has changed a lot in the value. If you compare the revaluation report from last year, it is only in attempting to reconcile what's on the revaluation and the converted numbers that have been inflated by the nature of them having been inflation adjusted to begin with. So this just happens in the first year, where we're saying the issue really is
I totally agree with all that, Tawe. I've also gone through a conversion process. But
Yes.
what's critical is before you pass that 81,000 adjustment, right? You're basically saying, all those assets I bought them, I know their US dollar value, right? Because basically the assets that you're buying last year, the 29,000 that you're buying last year, you know that they're basically 90% of those were in US dollars, right?
Yes.
So 29,000 is genuine. Agreed?
Agreed.
The additions that you did for this year, 31,542, those are purely US dollar assets.
Yes.
So I'm happy with that. My figure should be somewhere around that 91. That's what 29 plus 31. My only worry is my balance is at 1 January 2023, which is those assets are the one that should be overstated.
Yes.
Right? And my valuations in the revaluations of 91 in 2023 is one that we're basically reversing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's basically what you should actually then be obviously be able to explain why your assets have come down from 172 to 113. We overstated our assets in 2024 as a result of that revaluation of 91. And then right now we're reversing that revaluation, adjusting it by 81. And you give us the reason why that revaluation is reversed this year.
No, that's understood.
I think, Mr. Gumbo, you bring up a very important point in us understanding the governance around some of these decisions and some of, what we are supposed to follow. Because at the end of the day, I think it is incumbent upon the different committees to then advise the organization at large about what is really happening within the business and what these things mean. And I think that is where it is imperative that some of these changes, rather than just being done at a management level and executive level, have to then pass through so that the impact is is understood throughout the entire organization. That's a
100%.
very, very important note. It's a very important point that you bring up.
Yeah.
In terms of the governance around the decision making.
So like to me said, when you're making that correction to say when we did our functional currency, the impact of that is that our assets are going to come down from 172 to 113. And then that's understood by everyone within the organization to say our assets have come down by such a huge figure. And what other asset classes then are also affected by the change in the functional currency, such that next year, when there's another huge jump, no one then raises eyebrows, because we all know that when we did our functional change in currency, everything was then denominated in US dollars. We now expect not significant changes from the 113. That is our balance of assets as at 2024, which we are now saying these are purely US dollars. It will only be affected by additions and subtractions, and we don't expect any huge changes in revaluations from next year going forward.
It's clear, Mr. Kumbo. Okay.
All right, I rest my case.
Thank you. Point well made, I'm sure.
Sure. Back. Sorry. The word that is. All right, so if I may continue, Chairman.
Yes, please.
All right, so basically we're looking at the SFP now. So I was just pointing out that the net asset value had increased from 3.2 to 4,337.
Just in terms of our receivables, what's sitting in our receivables? Are they still outstanding premiums or what?
Oh, yes. As of 31 December, remember, we had not concluded the tobacco season. As you can see, current assets, which is our receivables, comprise of cash, intergroup receivables, and the premium debtors of 8.8 million, which are predominantly tobacco. Yeah. So I think I might as well just go through this part, I presume. So as we have seen, the non-current assets include that investment in subsidiary. Then I think we can now talk about the intended investment in a microfinance is still going through an approval process with the RBZ. So on this one, we have done everything we needed to do. So we are just waiting for the approval from the RBZ. I don't know if Mr. Nyon, you want to take that one?
Through the chairman. That is for the microfinance.
Yes.
Chairman, I think in terms of the microfinance, I think we've done, I think all that is under our control. We are waiting for operations to start, but we have been made to understand through the consultancy that we are now waiting for the last paper, which will be the clearance from the RBZ for us to go and start operations. So I think that is the stage where we are right now. The expectation was that we should have received this before the end of February, but we understand that that paper has still not been released by the RBZ, and it's an organ that you can't really press and say yesterday we have to wait, but we believe that maybe by end of March, in the week or two coming, that paper should be out, which will allow us to really go and start operations and do what the needful, what we have to do.
Just two questions for me on that one. So are you saying that the regulations of this is at two levels? Because I thought that we did get a license, correct?
Yes, Chairman.
and now the RBZ still needs to give approval.
Yes, Chairman, I'm told from what we understand, I think there are two levels. I wouldn't say two levels, maybe I would say two levels, and then you discover there's another one. But from what we understand, we are now waiting for the clearance letter, which has to be signed by the governor himself. I think the license came from the functional unit within the Ministry of Finance, but now we need to get the actual certificate or clearance letter, not certificate, clearance letter from the governor himself.
Okay. Right. My second question is, obviously we as Sanctuary are investing in a subsidiary. All right.
Yes,
That's what we're saying. And we're investing in, it's almost like investing in a business.
it is a business, Chairman.
Yeah. My question is, do we understand how this business is structured, how it's going to function? Do they have the stuff in place, and so on and so forth? Because we're talking about this, and again, you know, what we don't want to then do is, once we've received the approval, then we start going through the process of trying to get the right people in the right spaces and so on and so forth. Has all of that due diligence and that been done? You guys circulated a business plan. Are there people who are identified? What is the I keep using this word, it's going to sound like a stuck record, but what is the governance around all of this? What does that look like? Where are we with all of those? Because right now we're saying that we're waiting for the Reserve Bank. But post the Reserve Bank giving us, what does the rest of the roadmap look like until we get the first dollar coming out of that investment?
Chairman, thank you. Maybe if I can just come in there. I think in terms of the governance side of that investment, Chairman, I think from where I stand, we have not covered that space. It's an area that really need to be covered. I think we are being led by Mr. Kusi in that space. It's the same thing with the personnel that should run that business. I know that there are people that have been identified, and Mr. Kusi has had conversations with those people in terms of also doing the due diligence and the contracting. I'm quite certain that end has not also been tied up. So there's quite a lot of loose ends around that space, and I know that in the conversations that we had, Kusi wanted us to have the paper from RBZ for us to move forward. But I agree with you that those are issues that should be covered really by now, so that as soon as the paper comes through, we're hitting the ground running. I think the only other third party chairman that also required there is the capitalization, which I believe is already sorted, because the money that you use to apply automatically becomes the working capital, unlike in the insurance company where those funds have to be hedged and put elsewhere. So I think that's the update I've got for now, Chairman. I think I will obviously make it my assignment to sit down with the CEO so that those areas that you are raising are covered, so that by the time the paper is out, we are hitting the ground running.
I think it's going to be necessary for us to actually do that, so that we are all aware in terms of what's happening, how it's going, and so on, and follow the correct procedures and the correct internal processes for us to have. I don't know if you were, you would have heard something that has come from the auditor regarding another investment in another subsidiary, which I think we spoke about last year. And the auditors are asking about it now to say, listen, we keep seeing this thing still has issues. But internally, as the investor, as the shareholder, as the majority shareholder, 100% shareholder in this, are we putting money without an expectation of return? And at what point do we say that this is going to start making sense for us? So all of those things, I think, from a business development, and I don't know if it's being covered in the risk, but from a business development point of view, because we're going to start looking at these investments and seeing whether we're getting return on the capital that we've invested. So I think it is imperative that these things are properly structured, they're properly looked at, and they pass through the correct processes of the board.
Correct, Chairman.
Yeah. So as we're saying right now, if the paper drops, the money has already gone through.
Correct, Chairman.
The application, so that's what, 25K?
25K, Chairman.
Right, and you've recognized it, Mr. Shadaya, in your balance sheet.
For 2025. Because
For
remember, it happened
2025.
at the 10 of the year, not the 2024 figures.
Okay, so all right, and it's the 25.
Yes.
25K. Okay, because yeah, I think can we look at that properly, Mr. Nyoni?
Definitely,
I have so
Chairman.
many questions right now in terms of. I have so many
Definitely,
questions
Chairman.
because who is going to fund the? So that it's going to be the working capital.
Yes, Chairman.
Have we identified the technology that's going to support this?
That is not yet there, Chairman.
You're going to have a problem if you're going to try and run this thing without the appropriate technology.
Correct. I'll get those updates, Chairman, from Mr. Kosi, because he's really been the person behind running with that side of things. But I'll get the update for the committee.
Yeah, what I'm trying to also impress upon you guys is that you are the shareholder, right?
Yes.
You are the shareholder. These are necessary questions that you need to be asking of this entity or of this investment. You know, because you guys recommended that we do this, and we said sounds like a good idea. Diversification is what we're after. So it's not the principle that we are questioning. It's the operationalization of that idea. And I have a certain level of discomfort because one of the things that as Sanctuary, we have not always executed to the best of our ability is the operationalization of innovative ideas. We've had quite a number of them, but we haven't always been able to get them to hit the ground and run. And I think we need to just go back in our history, look at it, and understand where we've missed the boat a little bit. It's unfortunate we don't have a business development and strategy committee that would then look at the nitty-gritties of taking an idea and operationalizing it. But I think it has to cut across the existing committees as they stand. And I think if you can look at that and look at what is required in order for us to keep track of this, so that we're not asking each other about what has happened to that 25,000 when it's long gone.
It's not a Chairman. Okay. So through you, Chairman, if I can move on to the next section.
You're still talking about our assets, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, that's fine.
All right. So in terms of investments, there's an investment guideline that came from IPAC. So the table below shows the permissible investment avenues and their new maximum prescribed limits and range minimum to maximum as a percentage of the insurer's total adjusted assets as per a prospective type of investment. So for prescribed assets, the new maximum limit is 45%. So basically, the insurers have to be somewhere between 10 and 45. We were sitting at 2.2, which is now 6.8. I think by the time we did this back, and then in terms of
Sorry, Chairman, through you, if I could just interrupt it out there. On the prescribed asset, I think we have been explaining to all the committees the movement of our prescribed asset ratio from 2.2% to 6.8%. It appears that I think the approach in terms of the computation between us and the valuers is a bit different. So the actual report that came through has placed us on 6.8%, which is looking like a very good improvement. But we have requested the valuer, the actuary, to give us an indication in terms of how they did the computation. The verbal communication seems to indicate that there are obviously other factors that they input in terms of the computation. And they seem to suggest that this is obviously a guided area, and it is obviously with the approval of the regulator. So for us to really be able to celebrate the movement from 2.2 to 6.8, we need them to give us the comfort. So we have requested for that comfort from the actuary, who are waiting for the feedback to come through. And once that feedback comes through, Chairman, we will be able to celebrate. But we are happy that it's coming out at 6.8 and it's coming through the valuers, but we want them to give us the confidence that it is actually 6.8.
Noted.
Okay, so basically this is what we're striving towards, to try and reach at least the minimum percentages as required by IPAC. These limits are designed to promote a balanced and diversified investment portfolio, mitigating risks associated with overexposure to a single asset or class. I think we've also had several discussions because our balance sheet is predominantly the misdemeanors, and really is concentrated on one particular item. So obviously we were mandated to also try and align with these requirements. I think on the assets, I don't know if there are any questions before I move to the liabilities.
Just one question, and maybe Mr. Nyoni might be able to answer. Did we ever finalize with Beitbridge Town Council?
Chairman, I think we haven't finalized. We actually had a conversation about this in 2 weeks. We have requested the council to give us the balance for us to clear that stand. And I think we're waiting for that feedback. It looks like their records are in arcade. We have an estimated figure, Chairman, of 5,000, actually 4,900 USD that we need to clear, but we've requested them to confirm that our figure is correct.
All right. I think if we can note that, and it becomes something that we track. I think it's an asset. I know it's still falling into the same asset class as the misdemeanors, but it's an asset nonetheless. We can then decide what we want to do with it and try and see if it's convertible.
Correct, Chairman.
We can add value onto it. If we can track that, please.
Correct, Chairman.
Okay, moving on to our liabilities, I think they comprise mostly of the technical reserves, which are the UPR and the IBNR. Trade payables are 7.4, emanating from the tobacco premiums. Other payables of 843 include misdemeanors. Loan repayment of 109, conveyance fees 68.
That figure still 109. I thought it had come down. Can you please look at that? Because I thought there was some movement in that regard.
Yes, movement happened in January. So this is
in January.
Yeah.
Okay.
Conveyance fee 68, and this liability of 30, claims payable
I
524,
thought
which
it was January. I thought it had happened earlier.
no, the payments were made after the 10 of the year.
They were paying. Okay, anyway, all right. Let's move. Let's move
Yeah,
because I thought there was a payment of circa 80K that was made, or I was informed that had been made prior to that, that enabled them to do certain things on our behalf.
the balance that's actually left right now is 40K.
Yeah, okay, maybe so. Then maybe it's a timing issue, and I'm not sure why it would have been then. But there was a bit of a struggle last year. I know because I think I was partially involved, and I thought it had been paid last year. So if it was just a timing issue, I don't know what to. I don't really want to go into that. I was under the impression that the movements had happened in the prior year.
No, that's okay, Chairman. The claims payable 524, which included the farming business and statutory of 34K that were there as at 31 December. So this basically.
Sorry, just go down. Just want to
Okay.
look at the breakdown. Lease liability 30K. Claims payable. All these are tobacco claims.
Yes, yes.
And then which statutories are in our liabilities?
Payee all the NASA ones, because remember, if we were supposed to pay them by the 10th of the following month. So when we get to 31 December, we will have done a provision for these.
So all those are
So
provisions.
they're then cleared when we pay.
Okay. All right.
So that basically concludes the SFP. The cash flow, I think it's pretty straightforward. As at 31 December, we had a balance of 233,380. Our cash flows from operating activities were 215,000. From investing activities, that's 16,000 outflow, leaving us with that balance of 233 that we had in our accounts as at 31 December.
Confirm that's all US dollars, no RTGS converted.
No, there's ZIG converted to USD.
So how much of that is ZIG and how much is actual US dollars?
Of that, we had about 180 then, that was in USD. It included money that was supposed to be paid also for the stop loss premium that we then paid in January.
Money paid to for stock loss premium?
To FBC.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how much ZIG do you still hold? And
of the amounts that we have, I think our balance is that today, I think I'm sitting on about 20 something thousand US in US dollar terms.
okay.
Yeah.
And how much business are we still doing in ZIG?
In ZIG, there's basically nothing sitting in our ICE cash balance.
Oh.
Okay. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? When you say there's nothing sitting in our ICE cash balances, do we have another ICE cash account in USD?
No. I'm saying there's nothing sitting in our accounts. The money that we have is sitting in our ICE cash account. We funded all of it. Yes.
Chirungu, I know I switch notes in it, so that I'm going to get my ICE cash.
Ayo.
No, it's the accent, Mr. It's the accent, Mr. Bennett.
Huh?
It's the accent from the man.
I don't know, Zan, did it?
Do it.
All right.
Yeah, I think that basically finalizes my report, Chairman.
Okay. So if you will allow me, if we can now go back for those explanations on those movements in those metrics in the ratios, because I'm still interested in understanding why there was that movement.
Okay. So starting with the reinsurance ratio, I think the main thing, as explained in the previous board meeting, was the nature of the risks that came our way. Really did not warrant that we retain because of the nature of our balance sheet. So this sort of affected, because we are looking at things like bonds, we're looking at engineering. So this sort of like affected what we had budgeted for, because now all those risks, no matter how much we want to keep them, if a loss were to come through, we would significantly suffer.
Yeah, I think the chairman is looking for what caused the difference. So you had that in
So the
60%.
difference. So what I'm saying is that at the beginning of the year, okay, maybe let me repackage my question. At the beginning of the year, we as a team, right, we're looking at an average reinsurance ratio of 49%,
Yes.
right? 49%. And this is what would have, through the various committees, finance, audit, risk, and the board as a whole, what would have then been approved. Yeah. Now, if as we are progressing and as we are seeing the nature of the business, as we are forecasting, this is changing, right? Where now you guys are sitting as management and you're saying, you know what, we had promised the board that our reinsurance ratio, or the risk committee, that our reinsurance ratio was going to be sitting at 49%, right? We're now tracking above that.
Yes.
Correct, Chairman.
Sorry?
I'm saying you're correct, Chairman.
Yeah. So I'm trying to get a sense of, number one, what happened in the business environment, right? What kind of business that we had anticipated to get that would have allowed us to be operating at that 49% that we didn't get, and then the business that we're now seeing. And we will go back to the processes as well that now said, you know what, this is where we were. Now things are different, things are shifting. It's very fluid. What did you guys see that caused that? What is the note around that?
Okay, Chairman. I think just to put it to the comment that there was really nothing that really changed risk-wise or fundamental in terms of the risk that moved those numbers. The only things that caused the movement in that, the first one is you notice that in terms of the budget performance, our figures went higher than the budget, which means that there was an additional income that came through. And that additional income came from, we had not budgeted for the winter and summer crops, which also added onto the tobacco figure. And in terms of our uptake in that, they follow the same fortunes as the tobacco side of things. So with that increase, it obviously meant that business that came through, all of it was going for reinsurance against what we had budgeted for. And the motor business, the RTA, was actually dwarfed, where we also got a portion where we are taking 100%. So it was a question of the imbalance that came in terms of this new portfolio that came in and the overperformance of the tobacco against what we budgeted for. But in terms of the exposure and so forth, nothing really changed. What actually changed was that we now had more that we needed to sit out than we had budgeted for in terms of the income. But in terms of the exposure to the organization, really nothing changed. We actually followed what the board had approved in terms of the retention limits and so forth.
So does that not then imply that there was an underperformance of the less riskier business that did not need? That's what I'm trying to get to. Yes, I see that there is the performance of the tobacco side, but if I drill down, are you confident that the motor business, which was supposed to then massage these numbers to be closer to the 49%, do not underperform?
Not exactly, Chairman. I think one of the issues that we face with the motor portfolio is the conversion, the loss of value through the conversion. If you notice, I think in terms of the audited figures, we actually lost value from that because of the exchange rate movements and when the auditors were realigning. So I think in terms of the performance, it is just the fact that the one component is in the vulnerable currency, and secondly, the US dollar business actually overperformed because I think while these things are not look like there was a misalignment, I think it is the effort that we've made in that space to actually get more business that also had caused that misalignment. I think we could view it. It kind of balances off, Chairman, from what you're talking about in terms of underperforming. I think the motor business actually performed in line with the expectations that we had. But I think also at the same time, we had this vein of luck where I think our efforts actually generated more in terms of the farming business.
Yeah. So if you guys are confident that it wasn't an underperformance on one side of the business, because my concern really here is about cost, because obviously when I'm looking at this from where I sit, and if we're reinsuring at that level and not at the level that we're budgeting for, that would mean that inadvertently what that's doing is increasing our cost, right?
Yes.
Right. So that's where I'm coming from. And at the end of the day, we have a cost base and a cost model that we want to follow. And the questions that could then be asked is when we see that, right? When we see that, as much as we are saying that it's the overperformance, we need to counterbalance that increase in cost by doing something else. So I think it's key for us to understand the interlinkages, at least from where I sit, in terms of, okay, if we're now doing at that, rather than just looking at the top line where we're saying, but at least the agro business is firing. Remember, at that level, we have a certain element that we are now taking away from the cost. If we're on the same level at that, then that's fine. But just to go back as well into something that has been reiterated time and again, I think when there are discrepancies like this, let's then have the commentary that allows us to understand why there is that movement. Then the next one, as we said, the claims ratio, I know it's going to get complex. I'm not really interested in discussing that at this point, because from what I understand is that there was a once-off 1 in 7 year cycle event that pushed up the agro. But again, it feeds into what I was saying earlier on, that yes, as much as that business goes up, but when that business side of the business, if our mix is not correct, that side of the business catches a cold or sneezes, the whole business catches a cold. And we're seeing that here. The commission ratio, just for my understanding, 5% and 19%.
The commission ratio was I think the growth that we had in tobacco and then the winter and summer crops, this warranted that we pay the commissions to HRIB, which brought in the bulk of those things. So the quantum by itself on those particular classes sort of like overshadowed whatever gains we had in trying to reduce this rate in other classes.
Chairman, just to add on to
what... budget 5%.
Just to
Is
add
that
on,
correct?
Chairman. Yes, Chairman, actually, I think just to give you a bit of some perspective in that, the winter crop and the summer crop, the commission ratios, Chairman, we're talking about those that are actually regulated by the commission. They are quite stiff. We have actually presented some document to the commissioner to request an ICZ requesting that there be a moderation of those. It looks like we actually when we got this business, we had not actually realized what sort of cost it comes with this business, but we're happy that the broker is understanding. We're having this conversation so that in this year, this is moderated. These commissions to us, because in tobacco, we're looking at about 15%, which is a standard. And then on the other crops, it is actually 24.5%, which is a bit on the stiff side. So that's one of the reasons that contributed to that mismatch. I think we actually think because of the movement.
Mr. Nyoni, if I'm correct, that we have known, I think for the last 2 years, that the bulk of our business is around tobacco, yeah, or agro. And surely if you look at a weighted average on the commissions, right, it would be closer to what we're paying just on the tobacco alone. Rather, I'm failing to understand, first and foremost, the 5%, because tobacco is nowhere near the 5% commission.
That's a point, Chairman. I think that
Do
one.
you understand what I'm saying? And then also, sorry?
Sorry, Chairman, it's a net commission aspect. The difference between the commission received and the commission paid. It is not just a commission expense. It is the net.
So we're saying we are budgeting to receive 5% net commissions.
Yes, because remember.
And then we got 19% net commission.
Yes, because we're saying, for example, in the farming, the tobacco that Mr. Nyoni was speaking about, you are paying the producers 15%, and then the insurer is paying you something like 22. How much is it? 17 and a half. What about?
Yeah.
Yes. So there's already a 5% gain from that, just from tobacco.
But we budgeted 5. Prior year was 23. We budgeted 5.
Chairman, I think, yeah, we need to look into that. We need to look into that figure, Chairman.
Yeah. Again, it speaks to our processes of what, what's, and this is where I will be coming from when I'm looking at these numbers. I'm like, okay, prior year was 23, and then we sat there and we said, you know what, we're only going to receive, a net of 5. If we can look at that, where's the other one that I had an issue with? Right. Maybe if we can come down to staff expenses to total expenses, 44% and 24%.
Okay, so with that particular issue, this ratio simply means that if the other lines of business, the other expense lines, if they were managed and reduced, the staff ones are a bit more of a fixed cost, as you stated earlier. So those ones remain the same. So if you reduce your expenses, that ratio increases. Then if you increase your income.
What I'm saying is you guys, when there was a budget, right? And you looked at it and you said, these are the activities that we are going to do. And we expect our numbers to be sitting at this point.
If you look at it, Chairman, it's actually a good thing to have 44%. Why I'm saying so?
No. I'm just looking at what we plan to do. If you're saying, no, but overboard, and again, guys, it's about understanding the roadmap and understanding what we're pushing out. And are we underestimating ourselves, or do you understand? Because for me, it's the difference in the swings in the numbers. I think we spoke about this earlier, where I'm trying to understand, do we understand what specific things? So if I was to ask you, you guys would be able to say, you know what, we're budgeted 24%. But because Takazoita 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, not very generic things out, I'm not looking for that, because you're talking to also somebody who can, I can talk my way out to save my life. So I don't have a problem with explaining stuff.
No. Okay. Oh,
What I'm trying to understand is that Pataita 24, what was it?
okay. Through you, Chair. We're saying, suppose we're
Yeah.
budgeted it. Suppose we intend to have management expenses of 100,000, right? And then the cash flows do not play ball. And then we end up spending 60,000 instead of the 100,000. We simply say, okay, guys, we need to cut on A, B, C, D. Therefore, now we've spent 60,000. So the fixed costs, which are staff expenses in this instance, remain on whatever amount, they remain constant. So now if I'm using that amount as a percentage of a reduced total of 60,000, that percentage grows. So where I'm going with this, Chairman, there are certain things that happen. A budget is where we say we want to go. There might be things that actually make us overperform, and there are things that make us underperform. That's why people have to re-strategize at some point when certain economic fundamentals change. So in this particular instance, all I was saying, Chairman, was this was a good thing, because remember, overall, our total expenses were lower than budget. So which means these fixed costs remained the same, but their denominator reduced, which means we spent less than we had budgeted for. Just adapting to what was happening, we spent less than we had budgeted for, and therefore that ratio will go up as a result of reduced management expenses.
If I can come in.
Yeah.
I think the chairman has said it before, that because of the absence of comments from management, we are spending so much time trying to talk our way or try to understand what these ratios mean. So if we may request again that you put comments, and where there are variances, you indicate whether this variance is good by a color which is green, and if it's bad by a color which is red. Then we spend more time on those variances which are red. We are explaining to us what is the underlying reason why that variance has gone up. I understand from your staff cost to total expenses. So if your total expenses have gone up against budget, right? And then what you are saying, your staff expenses have gone down compared to budget. You are saying your staff expenses have remained the same because they're fixed costs.
But the other areas, yes,
But your total expenses
have gone down.
Have gone down because you have what? You have instigated other cost-cutting measures.
Yes.
Hence, your ratio has gone up.
It's gone up, yes.
Right, which is understandable, but that can only be understood if you are doing these ratios in line with your line by line item that on your income statement. Then you would have seen your total expenses have come down by a certain figure, hence your denominator is coming down, right? Which is
Yes.
your denominator is total expenses.
Yes.
So your denominator compared to budget has come down. It was
Yes.
supposed to be 100. It has come down to 80. Your staff costs were supposed to be 60 per budget. They've come down to 55. But 55 over 80 is greater than 60 over 100, right?
Yes.
So that is where your 44% is higher. Then you can understand
Yes.
why the 44% is higher than what? Your 24. Although it's a bit,
Yeah.
but even that's the explanation.
If I can also just come in there, Mr. Gumbo. You see, the issue I also have is that we run the risk of just putting metrics there that are meaningless to us. Right? Because if we sat down as a team at the beginning of the year and we said, guys, knowing all the stuff that you guys are talking about, because it's not like no, to reduce some of my lines. The only one that wasn't coming down was the fixed cost. There was a reason why the 24% was there. And it's pointless if we're just going to be putting it there and we're not going to then action it, and whether it's above or below, it's the fact that you guys put it at 24%, right? Put it at 24% meant that there were certain things, costs, efficiency, costs, cutting measures, and so on would have cut across the entire sort of business. And you guys still saw it fit that that ratio should be at 24%. And for us to now bring in post the fact all these other initiatives and so on, this is a line that speaks to staff expenses to total expenses. The prior was 27. You guys said we want to reduce it to 24, right? And there were certain specific activities that you guys meant to do. The fact that they didn't come down is a by the by. That's the first thing. And I think we've spoken about this. The second point that I want to bring up before we move on from this is we've spoken about this time and time again. A rule of thumb, if you have any metrics that you're comparing, whether it's current year, budget, prior year, whatever, forecast, if there's a difference of 5%, you write something, whether it's +5 or -5. It's a fundamental change that needs to be explained so that we get the correct context. I think this is something that we have said time and time again. I think Mr. Gumbo is not that issue. Just put an explanation. This is what it was. This is what happened. So that throughout the year, okay, there's traction, there's movement there. This is what we're doing. This is how we're tracking. As I said, we've sat around many tables. We've sat around many tables, being on your side of the fence and being on our side of the fence. This is not our first gig.
Correct, Chairman. Noted.
Yeah. So I think you remember my statement last time, too. But at some point, the learning has to stop. Because we keep saying, we keep repeating the certain basic things that we're just saying, guys, if we do this, it makes our lives a lot easier, because it doesn't matter whether you give us these things 7 days before or a month before. I can't do anything with it. Do you understand? Because
Correct, Chairman. I think that is going to be.
All right. I think we've all I was trying to get is an understanding of how our metrics are so different. What were the underlying? What were the drivers? Have we taken account of those drivers into this year? Do we expect the same trends to prevail in the coming year? So that, but no, this is what we budgeted and this is what we're doing. Then we're also then going to say, okay, my roadmap, how are we going to achieve these things so that we understand the specific steps that we're going to take? All right?
Correct, Chairman.
Okay.
Now that we don't have any other items on our A or B on our agenda, I might as well as bring in the point that I was going to bring in there. To say we also needed to have a look at what our current year performance over the first 2 months was, so that we can see the trend. Because to me, these ratios are important in terms of determining our strategy.
Correct.
Prior
Mr.
year was
Kumbo.
27, we're down to 24. So year to date, where are we for our staff expense ratio? So that it determines how we operate. But I'm sure we can move on.
You can put. Jawad is doing something here, Chairman.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got hard stop at about 20 past 2. I've got a 2:30 appointment.
Yeah, let's
I don't know where we are on the agenda. What's too outstanding?
can we move? I just want to go into, I think, the other stuff. Can you flag the agenda, please?
Sorry. Kindly help.
Yeah, I think you will notice that we've covered part of 4, and 5 was the reason why we were saying, I think if we understand the deviations from the previous budget, then we are also able to appreciate whether the same situation is going to prevail, and then if there are corrective actions required. Let's go into item number 6, please.
Capital allocation.
Yes.
So,
basically, 3 months into the year, obviously, as Mr. Gumbo was saying, it's difficult for us to actually, sort of see where we are going for this year, because we're so far behind in terms of information as to where the company currently sits. It's quite difficult, very, very difficult. Yeah, and I think enough has been said about the delays and why you couldn't finalize your financials so that you could start the year and so on and so forth. So I'm not going to dwell on that. I think suffice to say that it makes it very, very difficult for the board to actually participate in the discussions around company performance if we don't have a view of how the company is performing. So I think maybe we're going to have to go by what you guys tell us in terms of your capex and in terms of your financing needs up for the first 2 months of the year, 2.5 months. You guys had a plan that was approved. How are we tracking on that? Are we on course? Are we behind? What is, how are we going to correct that? That's the first bullet point.
Okay, on that one, sorry, Chairman, we'd only prepared in line with Q4, but I can give you a slight update. When it comes to capital projects, I think we've spoken about the microfinance, and we've given an update on what is needed there. In terms of capex, nothing has happened yet. We haven't purchased any fixed assets for the first 2 months. We're still, I think our priorities was making sure that the funds that we had to work on the Misty Meadows issue, try to cover as much ground.
Maybe if I could just come in, guys. You bring it up again, and I'm really concerned because last year when we were having the conversations, particularly around the EGM, question had been posed in terms of where was the funding, that was available for some of these things. And if it is now, this was money that was made in 2024 that we only received in 2025. Because there was a comment that was made in one of the meetings that the money that we were chowing at that time, the share buyback, the money that was going to Misty Meadows, to ZMF, to pay, and so on and so forth, was coming out of the proceeds of the winter crop.
On
So
that one, Chairman,
I'm a little bit lost in my
if I may
mind,
also,
trying to reconcile.
if I may also come in on that one, Chairman.
Yeah.
I'm sure. The issue with the winter crops also had their fair share of claims that continue coming up to this date.
Yeah.
Right. So I think maybe from the information you got, it was one thing to plan to say the process from the winter crops will enable us to do A, B, C, D. But if claims do come as unexpected, there's really not much from our end that we can do other than to service those claims.
But you recall that conversation, and you recall those questions being posed, and you recall the answers. Surely somebody would have recalled them. Mr. Nyoni.
Chairman.
Yes. Was I smoking something?
No, Chairman, no. I think
So I'm not, because right now I think people who are seeing me are like,
Not even.
and I don't know if you guys really understand how disconcerting it is when you're sitting here and you're saying, but I heard one thing, right, last time, and it seems a little bit different. So I get the issue that, and these were the questions that when we were posing these questions, this was one of the reasons why we were posing it. Good guys, we are now chowing money that we're not supposed to be chowing.
I don't think it's.
Do you understand? So now when we're saying that we haven't, and yet we had a capex plan that by now I think we would have spent some amount of money. Yeah, but now we're saying no, we can't, because we are paying off things that some of us thought were paid from the proceeds of the winter crop.
Chairman, I think maybe there was a bit of misalignment. Like I think my comment that I made to Mr. Kumbo when we're talking about the bottom line figures, that I think we need to be working with you. I think in some of these instances where if we take a turn for some strategic and I think emergencies, we update you. I think those plans were actually aligned along that way. But I think our environment that we operate in keeps on introducing new factors that actually affect how we do things and how we operate. I think this alignment, dislocation was maybe where we did not give you indications. And like I said, Chairman, I think going forward, some of these things, particularly the issues that are in the committee's side, whenever there are changes, we need to be highlighting them. I think we were only highlighting those that we thought were potential risks and so forth. But I think there are some that are critical, like you are indicating right now, where you're actually positioned and we are so far away in terms of understanding. So we would obviously, I think if you allow me to say that, we would be highlighting or flecking up these things to say there's been changes in terms of those capital expenditure plans that we had and so forth, so that we are aligned. And I think it would also help when we come to this meeting so that at least some of the issues are already dispensed of. They are already in the pitch.
Because it's pointless for us to talk about capital allocation in the past tense. What are we going to do?
Yeah.
It's it's pointless, you know, which means
Yeah, I think, Chairman, also the other issue I think that comes in, I think, which is also obviously a value addition, the structure of the agenda. I think maybe we needed to get some clarity on some of the items, how you wanted them done. So I think in the presentation that we did for the finance, you will notice, I think, that all the issues, I think, would one by one be covered as you move, as you present and so forth. But I think there are some outliers that needed really consultation to say, what sort of additional information are you looking for here? I think that's what we will need to do going forward.
yeah, look, I mean, you guys asked me for how I would like to run the meeting, and I came to you. Nobody then came and said,
Yes.
boss, I don't know whether do you understand what I'm saying?
Definitely, Chairman, because I think we were actually taking on these things, thinking that we done, but I think there was a misalignment, I think, on one or two points.
All I'm saying is for you guys and this guy, I mean, it's almost pointless for us to be having these meetings. Yes, there is the Q4, but again, the Q4 actually we can't really discuss it until the auditors are finalized. But there is a business that needs to be run. At what point are we going to say, okay, guys, this is where we are. This is the update. Because yeah. Okay, I think let's move on. Mr. Gumbo has got a hard stop. I need to also take a break because I've got a meeting at 3. And I've been sitting since 8:30 straight. So is there anything that we can actually discuss pertaining to the current performance of the business?
Basically, maybe to just say for January and February, we have an underwriting profit of 174,589 as it stands.
Okay, will you be able to circulate the management accounts before we get to the main board?
Certainly.
All right, if you can do that, then at least we can, if there's anything else that would need questions, we'll have to do it via email or face-to-face.
No, that's okay, Chairman.
All right, okay.
And then include as much comments, maybe include as much comments in your commentary to your performance year to date.
No, that's okay, Chairman.
If you can, I would really appreciate that. Thank you. Mr. Gumbo, is there anything else that you might want to add?
Nah, not much. I think we've just discussed most of the issues. Just to say, as part of our continuous improvement processes, let's continue to improve on our numbers, how we present our numbers, and also include commentary.
Okay.
Sorry, I was muted.
Yeah, okay. Mr. Nyoni and your team?
Chairman, I think the team looks satisfied. I think, like you said in the beginning, that it has been a long walk, but for me, really, it's to thank the committee as usual. That the comments that are coming through, Chairman, they are sharpening us every day. I think you are the proponent of the comment to say learning has to keep going. It doesn't really state you need to keep improving. So we are improving, Chairman, and all the comments that are coming through, we're taking them and we are going to convert them to use. And I'm hoping that as we go forward, all these things will be reflected that there are improvements that we are making that are coming from the oversight and direction that is coming from the committees. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for coming. I think we had another robust meeting. Just some issues that I think we need to really improve on. I think the time to get data or the time to get information so that we can make business decisions, I think as Sanctuary, that is an area that we need to improve. Even if you go back previously, you know, we've struggled, and I know a lot of it comes back to people who then say systems and so on and so forth. But if we're getting the management accounts by the 25th, the month is gone. It's gone. It means we are very reactionary. It means that we are always behind the 8 ball. We're always playing catch up. And that is something that not even just for the board, for you guys as management. And if you're to be making data-driven decisions, I think I saw somewhere in your strategy that you want to be making decisions, data-driven decisions. You have got to find a way of getting that information readily available for the people who need it in time. That's the first thing. The second thing is, obviously, in terms of the performance, we'll have to wait until we get the financials to see. But just to reiterate, part of the frustration that we have as a committee is that every time we meet, something has changed, and it's changed fundamentally. And you start asking yourself, you know, can you really add value to something, and how are we going to add value? Really, and what I would urge management to do is to look at their processes and see where some of the bottlenecks and try and address them. Because, yeah, we're sitting on a time bomb if we're not getting information quickly enough. That said, I think I'm going to close this meeting at 19 minutes past 2. The date of the next meeting, I'm not sure where it is, but it's somewhere there. If the person minuting can then put that. And thank you very much for your attendance. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Maybe, Dumi, what's the plan for next week?
Chairman, I think it's going to be circulated. We have got Monday and Tuesday where we've got a facilitator who is coming in for the board refresher course. And then on Wednesday, we've got the main board. But in terms of Monday and Tuesday, I think Madam Modi is going to circulate the program.
Oh, so you want us Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday? How many days?
3 days. Tuesday is a half day, Chairman. Monday is full day. Tuesday is half day. Monday is half day. Wednesday.
Wednesday. Yeah. All right. We'll see how we can juggle our calendars.
Thank you, Mr. Kumbo.
Okay.